Good morning.
Good morning, Roland.
Great. How was your weekend?
It was very good. I was monitoring you, listening and watching.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Good work yesterday, though.
No,
I didn't think you could make it today.
Yeah, I was wondering myself. I just woke up early, so I said, why stay in bed all the time?
Let's do the news now.
Yeah, start.
All right. Now, the founder of the National Democratic Congress and former President Jerry John Rawlings has cautioned the NDC not to underestimate the opposition New Patriotic Party ahead of the December 7 polls.
And the former president sounded this word of caution at the Cape Coast Stadium on Sunday when the governing NDC launched its campaign.
The NPP cannot be underestimated. You know it, I know it. They've been in existence for a long time and have been changing their names up till this day. The nature of who they are, what they are, where they've come from, is something they are happy with, and they will be there for a long time. The calculation I want to put before you is that by virtue of who and what they are, their mannerisms, their character, will necessarily give rise to what you and I are in the NDC. In other words, listen carefully. By virtue of who we are, where we've come from, how we came about into being, I keep saying we cannot afford to fight them on their terms. It's important that we fight them on our terms. What are those terms? In other words, let's not mimic their behavior. Let us reach into the principles and the values that emerged out of the circumstances that gave birth to us. And if we can hold onto those principles and those values, we will move way into the future and no one can ever defeat us.
Meanwhile, Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Charlotte Osei, is calling for public support for a free, fair and transparent election come December.
Speaking at the Medina Presby Church on the Commission's preparedness ahead of the December elections, the EC Chair called for an all-hands-on-deck approach to help deal with excesses in the upcoming elections. Latif Idris has more.
The Bible says that we have a duty to pray for those who are in authority, to pray for leaders and for the peace of the country. And the reason why we must do that is so that we ourselves may lead peaceful and dignified lives. So, if we are not happy with the state of our nation, then my theory is that it is our fault because we have not prayed for the leaders of our nation.
Charlotte Osei asked Ghanaians to give credible information to prevent any attempt by politicians to rig the upcoming elections.
The duty is on all of us. So when a politician comes to tell you that so-and-so is rigging the elections, please ask them how. They need to tell you exactly how. If we know how it can be rigged, then we as the Electoral Commission will have a duty to block it and make sure it doesn't happen. But when you are such an integral part of the process, from the registration of the first person to the announcement of the results, and you tell us elections are not free, elections are not fair, elections are not credible, then you need to tell us how.
She was, however, confident of a successful polls come December 7. She charged Ghanaians to respect the laws of the country and respect the collective will of the people ahead of the December polls.
Mrs. Charlotte Osei asked Ghanaians to give credible information to prevent any attempt by politicians to rig the upcoming elections. She was, however, confident of a successful poll come December 7. She charged Christians to respect the laws of the country and also respect the collective will of the people ahead of the December elections. And while the United Nations Secretary General's representative for West Africa and the Sahel, Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambas, has expressed confidence in Ghana's security agencies, particularly the Ghana Police Service, to secure peaceful elections ahead of the December polls.
At a joint conference by a high-level AU, ECOWAS and UN delegation here in Accra, the former mediator between the parties of the Ivorian Civil War in the early 2000s said the joint mission has observed and is confident Ghana's security agencies are on top of issues and well positioned to contain any possible clashes during and after the elections.
We were assured by the IGP that a mapping of hotspots have been done, and a number of areas have been identified, upwards of, I believe, 3,000, if I'm not mistaken. What that assures us that the security agencies are on top of this situation. They are anticipating already where to raise their vigilance and their monitoring, and with that preparedness, we have always had a lot of confidence in the professionalism, the competence of the security agencies. We urge them to remain professional and neutral, particularly during the electoral cycle, and if they do, they will win the confidence of the population to do what they have to do to secure the electoral process and also the candidates contesting elections.
And away from elections, Ghana's job market is choked with thousands of job-seeking graduates from various tertiary institutions across the country.
Well, the situation is forcing innovations out of most youth. To encourage self-help, Brian Jones Amoateng has over the past years been equipping the youth and young adults through the International Youth Empowerment Summit. The second edition of the summit was held in Accra over the weekend.
Society sometimes finds it difficult to accept the energy and exposure of the younger generation. This results in the youth isolating themselves, which sometimes makes them fall prey to the exploits of the world and its enticing influence. The IES Summit is therefore an initiative dedicated to the spiritual, intellectual, and emotional growth of young people through proprietary programs, revival summits, and practical opportunities. Speaking at this year's edition of the summit, President of IES, Brian Jones Amoateng, admonished participants to be driven and daring enough to achieve their dreams. Presidential candidates for the National Democratic Party, Nana Konadu Rawlings, encouraged the youth to believe in and follow their passion.
Don't even dream of the obstacles, because it's not necessary. Dream. Your dream can only begin once you take the action. That action has to be taken. Do something today. Ladies and gentlemen, please, do something today. Face your passion, but it all begins with a dream.
Founder and president of Eastwood Anaba Ministries, Reverend Eastwood Anaba, said it is time to disabuse the Ghanaians' mind of the phrase, "It is impossible."
This is Ghana, this is Africa. Where I live is Bogatanga. And everybody will tell you it is not possible. When you do it, you have exposed some people and you have denied them and disarmed them of their excuse to fail. Everyone says it cannot be done in Ghana, it cannot be done in Bogatanga, it cannot be done in Africa. As a black man, you cannot do it. As soon as you start doing it, you have disarmed people of their excuses.
He was honored for his contribution towards youth and young adult development. On the sidelines of the program, Brian Jones-Martin assured patrons of a more impactful summit in 2017.
Personally, I want to say a big thank you to Ghana. I do really appreciate it, and I promise you that next year, IS 2017 is going to be much better, bigger. IS, we are ready to empower, to inform, and to inspire the next generation.
IES was formed as a platform for the youth to exhibit their talents to serve the Lord and also to spread the quest to achieve great things whilst one is still a youth.
No, you can do anything you set your mind to. Let's look at this. Medical laboratory scientists have given authorities 10 days to address equipment and logistical challenges at public health facilities across the country, or they will withdraw their services.
They say basic equipment have broken down while reagents for their work are either in short supply or of low quality. Here's our colleague Kwesi Deborah with the following report.
Ashanti Regional Chairman of the Medical Laboratory Scientist Felix Sovo and Konfanoche Branch Chairman Richard Donaire say the decision to strike was taken at the national level. They have been speaking with Love FM's David Akwete.
Our annual Congress, that was when this threat of a strike came out, with the mindset that issues would be resolved before we come out of this strike. And so that is how far we have come. We have met and written many, many letters. We have done a lot of things that everybody that matters in our society has said things about it.
Infrastructure-wise, the things would take time. But what about the structures? What about putting people in places such that you have a directorate for the laboratory so that they will be responsible for the day in and day out running of the laboratories? What about putting in systems that make sure at every level you have qualified persons to run the place? Those are the problems we are talking about. And I have said, we said the name of the game is evidence. So you ask anybody who has been to the regional hospital in the last 2-3 weeks, ask the person the frustrations he or she had seen, and like I keep saying, it's not only that facility. There are many other facilities within our jurisdiction which I can say on authority that they are running down. Not because there are no capable people who can man the lab. Yes. And when it comes to a place like Konfanoche, it saddens me because people with personal interests have set up laboratories and diagnostic centers just around Konfanoche so that they run the government systems down and make sure their clients go to attend to those facilities.
For Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
And that's it for the news. We have a couple of your messages on our WhatsApp platform. 0560 800,000 is the number you've been sending these messages onto the platform. But you can also touch base with our platform or our page on Facebook. Join us on TV.
We'll come back with the newspapers, and on AM Talk this morning we'll bring you a lot of the playbacks as to what happened at the formal launch of the NDC's campaign. Stay with us.
We'll be right back.